Welcome to The Prize Inside, your favorite source for exploring the human potential through the stories of ordinary people achieving the extraordinary. These aren't just people exceeding physical limits. They're doing the impossible, and they aren't done yet. Are you ready to exceed your potential? Then join in now with your hosts, chiropractors Rochelle and Jeremy Myers and massage therapist Bunny.
Welcome, everyone, to The Prize Inside, where we learn about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. The Prize Inside is brought to you by MyPeakDirect.com. MyPeakDirect.com is an online store that holistic doctors have deemed the products exceptional. Ever have a difficult time knowing the best supplement to take? Maybe you've heard a suggestion and are not sure what is a good high-quality brand. MyPeak Direct is an online store that not only sells top-quality holistic supplies from top-rated companies, but everything they suggest, holistic doctors have deemed great. MyPeak does not recommend anything that its doctors have not even tried or have not tried firsthand. So check out www.mypeakdirect.com. Dr. Rachel Myers and Amy Segerman offer 4 components to support you as you begin your journey toward lifelong transformation, one healthy habit at a time. Your coach will be with you every step of the way. Studies show that having a support system can help you get better results. It's why each client gets paired with a coach to guide them on the path to optimal health and well-being. Their coaches are there to empower and encourage you in real time. They know the journey you're about to embark on because they themselves have been on that same journey. So call 269-964-1441 and ask for Dr. Rachel or Amy to get started today. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Prize Inside, where ordinary people do extraordinary things. Today, we are going to talk about principle number 9 of chiropractic. So let's get started. All right, I always like to start with a quote. I found this one pretty good for today's little talk. Perfection is a 20-ton shield that we lug around, thinking it will protect us, when in fact, it's the thing that's really preventing us from taking flight. Brene Brown said that. I thought that was pretty profound. Once you hear what principle number 9 is, as we go through, let's go through really quick. I don't want to do a whole rundown of each one, but we'll go through the 1 through 8. Okay, so principle 1 was the major premise. A universal intelligence is in all matter and continually gives to it all its properties and actions, thus maintaining it in existence, creating a universal intelligence. Principle number 2, chiropractic meaning of life. The expression of this intelligence through matter is the chiropractic meaning of life. So the expression of this innate intelligence that the universe has given us is what all of chiropractic is all, and a lot of holistic practitioners, mindsets, those kind of things are all about. Principle 3, the union of intelligence and matter. Life is necessarily the union of intelligence and matter. So those two intercreate. The triune of life. Life is a triunity having 3 necessary united factors, namely intelligence, force, and matter. The perfection of the triune is principle 5. In order to have 100% life, there must be 100% intelligence, 100% force, 100% matter. The principle of time. There's no process that does not require time. Principle 7. the amount of intelligence in matter. The amount of intelligence for any given amount of matter is 100% and is always proportional to its requirements. That one is always, to me, one of the neatest ways it comes across once you've read it a few times, and we talked about it before, where that principle shows that in all of us, the intelligence within is always there. It's just, it actually is only utilized perfectly. So, a good example would be the liver. The liver functions at a certain level. Maybe 10% of the function has to work until it has to get rid of a chemical, or the digestive process happens. Then all the more intelligence is used at that point. So the function is there. Okay, so principle number 8, the function of intelligence. The function of intelligence is to create force. So going back, you had to have 100% intelligence, 100% force, and 100% matter. The intelligence uses the matter to create energy. So this is, written in 1920 something. And so their word for force, I would replace that with energy. Okay, so now we're on to principle number 9. So the principle number 9 is the amount of force created by intelligence. So the amount of force created by intelligence is always 100%. So what this is saying is that the universal intelligence, which we'll go through a couple scenarios in this and it'll make a lot of sense. So intelligence gives us the amount of energy we always need. Whether that's available to us will be a different story as we go forward. So think about this. So when we go to, remember, there's universal intelligence, which is our world, our universe, right? So the universal laws that we're under currently, right? So gravity would be a good example. You go to the moon, possibly, let's say, if we all lived on the moon, a universal energy or a universal force would not be present, and that would be as strong of gravity as we have here, right? So universal intelligence, I kind of put it in that. Almost the laws of physics really go into that field. But our innate intelligence is also universal intelligence, right? But it is within us. So it resides in our body, in all of the pieces of matter that we have. So the amount of force, the amount of energy created by the intelligence is always 100%. So that's interesting because a lot of times, when we start looking at our own health and this concept, we come to this conclusion, and I love this. It's been in chiropractic for years. Nature needs no help, just no interference. So when we say something like that, as you go, it sounds pretty easy, right? But then you start looking at everything. And the number one way to take away health from anything is to interfere with that intelligence within. So I'll give you an example. If everything was working perfectly, I'll give you an example of the doctor that we took over the practice from. His name is Dr. Geimer. And I just found out through my other doctor was taking care of him. Sorry, I had to take a drink of water. He was getting a chiropractic done. And I always assumed that Dr. Geimer started in 1968. He actually graduated in 1968. But he started opened his own practice in 1971, which makes this podcast in pretty much our 50th year being a chiropractic clinic, which is really cool. I really appreciate that about him and all those things. But as you go forward, where was I going with that? The nature needs no help, just no interference. So, one of my favorite jokes of his was, he'd have a patient come in and they'd say, "Doc, I don't want to see you anymore. This is crazy. I got to come in. My back hurts, and then 6 months later, I got to come back again. He's like, what can I do? And he used to say, which is the favorite, he goes, sit down for me, sir. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is quit your job. What? He's like, then the second one is to sell your home. Really? What are you talking about? What we need to do is start to have you go find a cave, live in the cave, take your shoes off. You could probably wear some clothes. That might not be too bad, but make sure you get out in nature. Make sure you grow and raise all your food. Start hunting and gathering all the things you can find. And then when you figure that out, you may not do something in your life to screw up your spine. And everybody starts laughing. But my favorite part of that is that it's exactly true. So nature needs no help. It just needs no interference. It's a very big concept that if all of us start understanding that, that can be our first starting point at all times. As we start looking at our own health, so many want to change things, or there's something on the TV. I had an uncle call me at 10:30 at night one time asking if the newest back pain stretchy machine on one of those infomercials was going to work. And I go, so does taking care of your back. That would be a good thing. We start laughing. But that's a thing. We know. We try to be healthy, and then we're told different things, right? So we're constantly inundated with things that will make it the next big supplement, the latest and greatest piece of equipment. And it can even happen to us chiropractors. Like, a lot of times we want to help people so bad that a lot of times we get caught up in the different, I'd say different tools that you can use for this one particular condition, or, those kind of things. And all those are well and good, but the focus always needs to be on removing any interference that would happen to our innate intelligence. So when you start looking at our day-to-day life, we have to look at the mindset of the human body. So remember, we always go back to deductive reasoning, right? Or deductive logic. When we start looking at that, are we living a lifestyle, let's say, as we go through the new tech age and these kind of things, that are they going to counterproduce to our intelligence that's within us? So one of the greatest things I've always thought of is like when you take in your head, you have a mind of a normal human. So human anatomy book, perfect man or woman, what their spine looks like, what their organs look like, basic anatomy book, right? So how do we get in there and say, okay, this is all there, where do we go from there? Well, truly, like Dr. Geimer used to say, is that if we hunt and gathered our food, did you know our human body is actually designed to walk between 8 and 10 miles a day? 8 and 10 miles. That's an insane amount of walking. Do any of us do that? Maybe there's a few. I always think of this mail carrier Fred that came in and he put one of those Fitbits on, and one of his office workers, friends, decided they were going to have a contest of how many steps they were going to walk. Well, by his afternoon, he had doubled what the office worker did, right? So he had this great job and honestly, when he'd come in to get adjusted, it was almost never his low back or, those kind of things. But that was the interesting part. It was more if he ever got injured per se, he would be jumping in and out of the car or the truck that he was taking if he had that or lifted something, those kind of things. So, but think about that. The amount of walking between those two professions was pretty significant, right? So, but he didn't have an interference, right? Because he had walking as part of his daily life. that would, interfere with his function of his low back. Does that make sense? So let's say you get that posh desk job, always wanted. Now you're sitting in front of this computer. You're so excited. You're going to make 6-figure income. It's going to be sweet. You get at it, and then you just grind. You grind on this computer, and you're typing different reports and blah, blah, blah. So what are the interferences that are occurring there? Just from that, right? So we're going to talk about some other stuff as we go and what you can do to kind of look at your own situation. But so what is it at a computer desk sitting, or how about our kids that ended up on Zoom for an entire school year, right? What was that? Why did that look like what it did? Well, a lot of times the computer screen itself is giving off waves to project to you, right? So me doing this, looking at my notes for this episode, you have this computer screen looking at you, and though they're the little, I wouldn't call it radiation, maybe it's a radiation, but it's a smaller low dose of that, this blue screen, and what that can do to your eyes, because that wasn't part of nature, right? So now also you'd be sitting, right? So sitting might be one of the worst postures for your human body ever. So you sit for a prolonged period of time. Your brain gets completely fixed on finishing a project. It's going. One reason why we have this fatigue that sets in at the end of a person's day in a computer job, and why we see a lot of computer job type people really have hard time with like weight, back pain, strength, those kind of things. Here's another study for you. So in 2016 or 17, one of those two, there was a study that said sitting is worse than smoking. That changed a lot of corporations really, really fast. They were like, oh dear, we do not want that. So you saw in a lot of professions, tons of them around the world, a standing workstation became the norm, so that you had that option. But anyway, so going back to the interferences, so we have this computer job, the stress of completing, like, let's say a task, let's say you're writing a 4-page document and you're going and going, all those different pieces are in there. Now your brain is completely focused on getting this done, right? So now you sat prolonged for 3 to 4 hours, right? So what's the problem with sitting in a prolonged position for 3 to 4 hours? Well, our human body has an intelligence that we're constantly moving. If you notice, we are, if we lived and we hunt and gathered our food, let's say we were out hunting and we had to use a spear to do it, would we sit around? Would we sit for 4 hours? Maybe. Maybe we're, doing the stalking thing of, a deer or something. So that could be a possibility. It's definitely a possibility that it could be, it's done, right? Because our bodies are able to do it. Is it the best thing? Is it allowing our innate intelligence to work at its 100% capacity, giving us the energy we want 100% of the time? That's the key. So as you go forward, where are there interferences to your innate intelligence? They're everywhere. They're in all things that we do as humans, right? I'll give you the different ones that I would like you to focus on now, okay? So let's say there's electronics, there's chemicals, there's radiation, there's physical limitations, right? There's stresses, like mental stresses, there's financial stresses, there's relationships, there's spiritual, so many things that we're going to dive into on this podcast, and then hopefully have some really cool guests in our future as well. Excuse me. So that we can really dive into these different areas where what I want you to start looking at, and principle number 9 really does a good job of that, is how do I remove these interferences? Maybe I don't add anything. Maybe I'm looking to see Maybe that's eating a healthier, organic, more organic, or just a healthier concept. Maybe it's not sitting at a computer for prolonged periods of time. Maybe it's, doing more walking. There's a lot of things that we can remove interferences from. And so what I want you to think of, the chemicals we use to clean our clothes, the chemicals you use to take a shower, right? So one of the interferences I will, as a concept, is I am severely allergic to a lot of deodorants. There's something chemically in most of the major deodorants that it just causes me a reaction. I'll get my lymph nodes, knowing what those are. Yeah, if somebody's out there and they have like itchy armpits or something, I found out it was the deodorant I was using. So when I figured that out, I started changing the different brands and going more organic. I don't know if my patients love that at the end of the day, but it is much better for me because of the immune system. My lymph nodes don't fire up when I use something really good and organic on it. What did I do? I removed an interference that didn't have my innate intelligence was kept having to respond to by creating lymph nodes. What does that mean? That means that there was immune cells every day going to that area, okay, being occupied with this reaction I was having to deodorant, where they could be more well spent on something else. Let's say I had think about this. So let's say you had a massive allergic reaction and then you ate food poisoning. That's crazy. That could put you in a world of hurt, right? Or how about this one? You have a flu, right? Some kind of flu, who knows? Like what's going on, you're feeling really crappy. And then you get food poisoning, right? How's your body going to respond to that? So it's like stacking on stacking on stacking of those things. How do we get to that point where we understand to remove the interferences from our lives? And that is the ultimate journey. The ultimate journey is really about that. It's not the next supplement. It's not all those things. These are all things that could be a positive. But how do we get to a point where our bodies are, not being interfered with? One of my favorite worlds is the weightlifting world. I love powerlifting. I love those type of things. The problem is in that world, there is a lot of trying to manipulate the system. Okay. So trying to manipulate with different supplements and different things to try to get a better result. The problem is you're manipulating the situation to get a better result. So what happens when that manipulation with, let's say you went and got supplements from a certain place, when you do those things against your innate intelligence, you end up with a byproduct that your innate intelligence can't sustain. So I'll give you an example of that. So years and years ago, I took care of a guy that was admittedly to me using steroids for bodybuilding. So, and in his amateur bodybuilding, he just was addicted to the weightlifting and those kind of things. I literally watched. So he came in and he could not move. He was on a walker. This man was the strongest dude I've ever seen, ever took care of. And he was on a walker coming in to the office. So as we're going through the process, I'm checking him chiropractically, and weirdly, what we call the vertebrae out of place for some will be or misalignment in the spine. We call it subluxation. So the subluxation was not at a whole level where you would think that this guy would be on a walker. Well, what had occurred, and after we treated, we figured it out. What had occurred was his muscles had gotten so strong that when his body reacted for that subluxation or that misalignment to occur, his muscles overreacted to a point where it paralyzed him. He actually had to go get injections to get the muscle tone down so that we could actually put the spinal bone back in. I've never had that happen. Well, I take that back. We've had one other one. That dude, we had another kid that it was kind of amusing at the time, probably not so amusing to the kid. We had this one, I wasn't his doctor, but I used to coach football for a while. And this kid, I get a call, or right after the football game, the band leader comes and goes, "Hey, do you mind taking a look at this kid?" I go, "What?" So we go in the trainer room, and in the trainer room, there's a kid, and he cannot let go of the drumstick. He had been drumming all night, going crazy, and he was so in spasm in his arm that he couldn't let go of the drumstick. And I started talking to him, and there was no chance, like you couldn't rip that thing out of there if you wanted to. I never would have thought this would have been an actual thing, but it happened. It spasmed so bad. He had a drumstick in his hand, and there was no muscle massage I could do to even relax it away. So I asked him, I'm like, what do you do before you get here? Like, do you drink water? He's like, not really. He drink pretty much pop as a routine every day, all the time. I can't remember what kind, maybe it was Mountain Dew, but he literally, and his girlfriend was next to him, and he said, this boy literally goes through like a 12-pack of Mountain Dew every day. And so I go, son, that's probably your problem. You're going to find out this is a really bad idea to do something like that, because the sugar interferes with our body's ability to do things. That's why you see diabetes in general, with massive sugar problems, end up having major muscle problems and nerve problems. Why? Because it interferes with the musculoskeletal system's ability to function. So those are just some couple examples. But what I want you to do this week, this is my 1% improvement this week. I won't keep belaboring you today, but my 1% improvement is look at your environment and check out where you can remove an interference. Where does that look like? Is there a time, let's say for me, it used to be watching television at night and watching too much of it. One of the, all of us have done this. Somebody introduced us to, I can't remember what Netflix show it was. Some of these Netflix shows are crazy, or any of those shows where you can actually binge watch them can be crazy, because you can get completely addicted and just watch way too much. And so one of those shows in particular, my wife and I could not stop watching it. We were so excited to watch the show, except for we'd watch it till 11:30 at night, and then I start my day at 7 in the morning. So getting up at 5 the next day, and kept doing that, and started wearing us down a little bit. So that was an interference. We decided, okay, like maybe one of those shows a night, possibly once a week now. So that's what we do instead, and almost watch no TV at all, and which has kind of been really cool, actually. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how much more you can get done. But you don't have to go to that extreme. But if you can find things, if you can, take those interferences away, add something positive in there, something that's not an interference, but actually enhancing. Anything that doesn't interfere will probably enhance your ability. So remember that as you go on your nature walk, instead of that, news channel that doesn't teach you anything anyway. So those that's my 1% improvement this week. And hope to see you guys Monday for our next one, which is principle number 10.
Don't think for a second that this episode has reached its full potential, because we have plenty more for you on Myers-Chiropractic.com. Be sure to like us on Facebook and subscribe to the show on your preferred podcast listening service so you don't miss a minute of real stories, real people, and real results. We look forward to exploring the human potential with you next time, right here on The Prize Inside.